What's up, everybody? This is Glenn back with a Bears 2024 offseason preview video, the first of its kind on my channel. Last year, I did a few for the 2023 offseason. We're going to get back to it with the 2024 offseason right now. So with that being said, let's take a look at the players under contract for the 2024 season for the Chicago Bears. You could argue for building blocks on this offensive side of the ball. Without a doubt, DJ Moore. And I would say personally, without a doubt, Tevin Jenkins and Darnell Wright are building blocks for the future. Nate Davis, big offseason signing last year. Cole Kmet got an extension. I think those are two guys that could play roles on this team. Significant roles, I should say, starting roles. But I don't know if they're two players that you get super excited about. And then lastly, a lot of people would argue for and against Justin Fields. If you're thinking about extending him, picking up that fifth-year option, either of those two things, you're definitely in the mindset that he's a building block. I think for the sake of this video, I'm going to take a little more realistic approach, and assuming the Bears get a top 2 draft pick, I think they're probably going to move on from Justin Fields. So that's the viewpoint I'm going to take in this video, but right now he is currently under contract for 2024. On the defensive side of the ball, there's definitely a few more pieces in my mind. First off, Jaylen Johnson, who is not pictured because he's not currently under contract for 2024, is without a doubt probably the best player on this defense, followed closely by Montez Sweat. Then you got our linebacking core, who's incredibly strong, with TJ Edwards having a hell of a season. I would argue a Pro Bowl caliber season. And Tremaine Edmonds, big money free agent last year, definitely flashes loads of potential. I'd like to see a little more out of him next year. And Jack Sanborn, incredible value for an undrafted second-year player. He's been a stud. He's even filled in for Edmonds when hurt and played great. That being said, he is what he is. He is an undrafted guy. He's a great player at the same position, but long-term building block, not quite sure. A couple of young guys at defensive tackle with Dexter and Pickens. I think Dexter flashes a little more often than Pickens this year, and I think the Bears are a little higher on him as well. Andrew Billings given a couple-year contract this season. Due to his play, he's been great as a big piece in that middle, helped immensely shore this defense up against the run. Secondary, young, improving. I'd like to see a little bit more out of them next year. One piece that I think we're definitely going to be having to look at replacing is Eddie Jackson. So if we look forward on this next page, well, real quick, 34 players under contract. It's going to go down to 31 in my eyes. When you look at pre-June first cuts, Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair, simply too much money for their performance on the field. Thank you for your service, boys, but it's that time. Travis Homer also just, I think you were thinking before the draft maybe he'd be your third running back, have a little bit of more of a role. But with the emergence of Dante Foreman in this offense, along with Khalil Herbert, who's been pretty good with his career with the Bears, and rookie Roschon Johnson, he's just kind of fallen to the wayside, so I think you move on from him. Let's bring back Patrick Scales, Mercedes Lewis, and Greg Stroman from within. Let's bring them all back on one-year contracts, nothing too expensive. This is where I talk about Jaylen Johnson. I think the Bears think about non-exclusive franchise tagging him. It's going to be a one-year tag. Probably going to cost you somewhere around $19.5, $20 million. If another team does make an offer for Jaylen and the Bears do not want to match it, they can say goodbye and get some draft capital back in exchange. I think that's a possibility. He is a premier cornerback in this league, and I could see a team giving him an offer, especially if they have like a late first-round draft pick or late in the round picks, and we'll see what kind of capital we'd get back. The only other noteworthy thing I'd do if I were in the Bears GM shoes, I would be thinking about signing Tevin Jenkins right now for a multi-year deal. I know he has had some injury concerns, but this is maybe his most healthy year to date. It's also been his most effective year in terms of pass blocking for sure, and just the overall play of his game. I'm thinking 3-4 years at somewhere around $10 million a piece. I think that's where you're looking at for Tevin Jenkins. Maybe creeps up to 11, 12. But that being said, he's a guy, he looks like he's maturing with his demeanor and the way he handles himself off the field. And it seems to be reflecting in his play on the field as well. So if we do those things there, we bring back these guys, cut these guys, tag Jaylen, and let's assume nobody gives him an offer that we're not willing to match, and extend Tevin. We're looking at 38 players heading into free agency. A few more holes on the offensive side of the ball than the defensive side of the ball. But that being said, let's take a look at some of the free agents I would like to consider if I were the Bears. And more so than anything, these are positions I think you need to look at in free agency. If the Bears, decide against the center I name here and we'll go with a different center, for example, I'm not going to be upset. These are just kind of positions I think you should be looking at attacking. So first off, like I said in the early going, I know some people, myself included for a long time, our team build around Justin Fields. I think if you get the first or second overall draft pick, I think you got to just go quarterback and not think too hard about it. Reset that rookie quarterback contract. Get a quarterback that potentially has more upside than Fields. I know Fields has all the tools, but he hasn't quite put it together. And he's more so looking like he is what he is. Now, if you did build a great team around him, could you potentially win with it? Yeah, but I think it might be the smarter thing to do is just move on from him. So in this scenario, we're going to trade Fields to Atlanta. I know that's the hot team that people talk about trading him to. That's what we're going to do here in this scenario. We're going to get back a few draft picks in return. And in free agency, we're going to look at Noah Brown, a wide receiver, a safety, center, another receiver for some depth, some linebacker depth, tight end depth, and rotational defensive end. No huge money guys, but 4 or 5 guys that can definitely help the starting lineup, whether it's rotational or as a starter, and then a few depth pieces as well. So if you look at what the mock depth chart looks like here after free agency, we definitely got a huge hole here at quarterback with Fields being gone. Probably need a second or third if you're going to put Noah Brown at second. We need a difference maker at wide receiver to go along these guys. Some depth at offensive line, some depth on the defensive line. But overall, it's definitely looking like a pretty decent roster. Personally, I like bringing in a vet here rather than drafting just because everybody else here is relatively young other than Jaylen. So I'd like to get a little more experience there in the secondary. Also on the offensive line as well. We got 2 young guys with Braxton and Darnell Wright. We're looking at depth being pretty young. I think bringing in a few-year vet here at center would be a smart move. With that being said, I'm going to come back with part 2 where we do a mock draft with how this roster is looking and see how the Bears roster might look after a mock draft. Stay tuned for part 2.